Welcome to the deep dive. Okay, get ready because today we're plunging into 17th century India, specifically Kerala, and this really significant transformation in an ancient Christian community. You might know them as St. Thomas Christians or Nasranis. We've got some great sources walking us through the history, the liturgical changes they experienced, and our mission really is to figure out how a major part of this community moved from one ancient worship tradition to another. And, what does that tell us about identity, about faith? This community, they had incredibly deep roots, traced all the way back to St. Thomas the Apostle himself. And for centuries, their tradition was the East Syriac rite, connected to the Church of the East, to the Persian church. There's that great quote.
Oh, yeah. Indian in culture, Christian in faith, and Syrian in worship. That really sums it up.
Exactly.
And that East Syriac rite, well, it wasn't just like prayers and rituals. It was fundamental, deeply rooted in Scripture. Early church fathers used the East Syriac language. The anaphora of Adai and Mari was central. This very ancient Eucharistic prayer. It was truly part of who they were.
Right. So the sources point to a crisis building with the arrival of the Portuguese. They pushed hard for Latinization, especially after the Synod of Diamper in 1599, trying to suppress local customs, things tied into their worship, and tensions just boiled over with that tragic incident involving Bishop Mar Ahatala in 1653. That seems to have been a real catalyst.
Definitely. And the community's reaction? Wow. The Coonan Cross Oath in Madoncherry, 1653. A huge group basically swore they wouldn't submit to the Portuguese hierarchy anymore. But the key thing here, initially at least, it was about asserting their autonomy, their independence. Not really about choosing a different rite right then and there. It was resistance.
A powerful statement of identity. But okay, after the oath, things got, complicated. They performed this irregular consecration. Their leader, Archdeacon Tama, became Mar Tama Ernest, but consecrated only by priests, which isn't standard.
Right, not canonical for a bishop. So suddenly there's this urgent need for legitimate leadership, proper apostolic succession. The sources show they started looking elsewhere, seeking help from other established Eastern churches.
And that's when a key figure arrives on the scene, Mor Gregorios Abdul Jalil.
He was the Syriac Orthodox Metropolitan of Jerusalem, a big deal, sent by the Patriarch of Antioch. He gets to Kerala in 1665.
So what was his most critical, immediate action?
Giving them that legitimacy. He canonically ordained Mar Tama III. Simple as that, but huge implications. It regularized Mar Tama's position, yes, but more importantly, it forged a direct, formal link between this group and the Syriac Orthodox Patriarchate of Antioch. This really cemented what they call the Puthankur, the new allegiance.
Okay, so the link is established.
Yeah.
But the actual switch in liturgy, the worship style, that wasn't instant, right? What changed first?
No, not at all. It was gradual. The first steps were more about undoing the recent Latin changes, so bringing back leavened bread for the Eucharist, reverting to the Julian calendar for feast days, things the Portuguese had tried to change.
And then the West Syriac practices started coming in more fully.
Yeah, bit by bit. Mor Gregorios himself seems to have influenced the adoption of West Syriac vestments, for example. But the really big liturgical shift introducing the Liturgy of St. James, which is the main West Syriac liturgy, adopting Antiochene fasts, feast days, that sort of thing that happened more systematically maybe 2 decades later. And it was carried forward by other bishops sent from Antioch over the next century or so. Even the terms changed, Mar became more Corbana, became Corbono, small signs of a big shift.
And this whole process, it led to a split in the community that lasts, in a way, to this day.
Absolutely. You have the Puthankur, the new allegiance connected to Antioch and using the West Syriac rite, and then the Pazhakur, the old allegiance. Many of them eventually reestablished communion with Rome, but importantly, they kept their original East Syriac traditions.
And for the Puthankur, the new allegiance group, this wasn't just about the rituals changing, was it? There was a theological shift, too.
A very significant one. They embraced the Miaphysite Christology of the Syriac Orthodox Church. Now, that's a different understanding of Christ's nature compared to the Diophysite view historically held by the Church of the East, their original tradition. So yeah, it went deeper than just liturgy. It was a fundamental theological reorientation for that community.
Fascinating. And bringing it to today, that West Syriac tradition is still central for several major churches in Kerala.
That's right, like the Jacobite Syrian Christian Church, the Malankara Orthodox Syrian Church, even the Syro-Malankara Catholic Church, which later came into communion with Rome, but retains that West Syriac liturgical heritage.
And Mor Gregorios Abdul Jalil, his legacy.
Immense. He's revered as a saint, Mor Gregorios Baba. His tomb in North Paravers is a huge pilgrimage site. It really shows how pivotal he's seen as being for this whole branch of Christianity in Kerala. He's a foundational figure.
And today, we also see more use of the local language, Malayalam, in the liturgy alongside Syriac, making it more accessible.
Definitely part of the ongoing story.
So let's quickly recap this deep dive. The 17th century shift, really sparked by More Gregorios' mission, seems driven by the community's own needs resisting Latinization, seeking valid leadership.
Right, indigenous needs met by external intervention.
Exactly. And it led to these profound, lasting changes in liturgy, theology, church structure.
And it's just a powerful example, I think, of how history, external pressures, and that internal search for identity can completely reshape a community's core faith and practice over centuries. It's not always a straight line.
Absolutely. So here's something to think about. What does this story, this history from Kerala, suggest to you about how our own identities, cultural, religious, personal, might be shaped by history, by tradition, and sometimes by completely unexpected turning points? Something to ponder next time you think about the different ways people worship or how history takes these surprising turns.